Ladies and mostly gentlemen, today we're going to talk about Argos. More specifically, the final raid of the Legion expansion, Antorus, the Burning Throne. Now, as of making this video, this raid is not active on the PTR, but it appears that the first parts of the raid testing will be beginning soon. So what this video will involve is me flying around different areas of the map and speculating where each boss will be, and maybe finding out a bit more about this new raid. Now, if you didn't know, Blizzard like to use one map ID for a raid, but have different sections of the raid inside it, with separate names and skyboxes, giving the illusion of moving to a different world. As an example, this is how the Outland Map ID is laid out. As you can see, the map for Outland also includes the starting area for the Draenei and the Blood Elf, but obviously you can't see them due to invisible walls and fog, so this is how the Argos raid is laid out. Currently, there are 7 different areas to explore, each having their own feel and look to them, and we're going to look at all 7 today. Honestly, a lot of it is looking complete, but there are some areas that are more complete than others, but you'll see that as we go along. So before we go inside the raid, I'm going to show you the entrance to it. Now, the entrance to this raid is located in the Antorus Wastes, right here on the map to be exact. The entrance is this crack in the wall, similar to how the Black Temple entrance wasn't just the front door. So now it's time to teleport into the raid and make some speculation that will probably be completely wrong by the time it launches, but oh well, it's always fun to speculate. So the first part of the raid that we're going to is actually the biggest and has the most questions out of all of them. So this area is actually almost an exact duplicate of the area where the entrance to the raid is located. I say almost because the entrance of the raid is now a cave to nowhere and a meeting stone, which is very strange. I honestly think this area will just be like an all-out war and there'll just be a battle to get inside the building. But what makes me wonder is why will we actually go through a crack in the wall only to come straight back out of it, as the other 6 maps have no indication that is the other side of the crack, not like Black Temple where it's very obvious where you come from. Looking at the bosses on the dungeon journal, it kind of gives you a possible idea of what bosses would be located in this area. My theory is that the first boss, Garroth the Worldbreaker, will be guarding the gate in some way, possibly in some sort of fell pit, judging by the model. In the journal, his description mentions that his single purpose is to bring the mortal invasion to its knees. The second boss, the Fellhounds of Sargeras, also seem like they'll be guards, as the dungeon journal mentions putting an end to the invasion. Also, a bit of a giveaway is that on the PTR you go to this area, they're actually running around together outside the gate. And finally, my best guess is that the final boss in this area will be the War Council. This fight kind of sounds like it'd be pretty interesting, mentioning them being in and out of command pods. Makes me kind of wonder that it would be like some sort of aerial battle. Overall, I think this will actually be the first area of the raid, as you're going to see the other areas and none of them even come close to looking like the beginning of the raid. Also, weirdly enough, this map features 2 Vindicars. If you don't know what that is, it's the spaceship we used to get to Argos in the first place, and remember that because you're going to see a lot of it. Speaking of which, this is actually the smallest area of the 7 areas, and all it features is a floating Vindicar in the middle of space. Now, from the inside, you can clearly see there's a very specific placement of Argos in the skybox from the front of the Vindicar. I would assume that this will either be used for a segue cutscene, or we'll actually face some sort of boss inside here on our way to another area. As you'll see, as we continue, the Vindicar actually makes an appearance in nearly every area of the map. Nothing much else to be said here really, it's just the Vindicar, and I'm curious how it will be used. So this area is known as Argos Engineer on the map. It starts off with the Vindicar and it leads into a linear platform. To the sides of the platform are those Argos Fellreaver constructs. These aren't NPCs, just simply a part of the scenery and for decoration. As you carry on down the path, this appears to be some sort of area where the constructs are created, and you'd imagine there'll be some sort of patrol NPCs here before you reach the boss area. Speaking of the boss area, this area here at the end of the pathway has to be for a boss. More specifically, I'm 99% sure that this is where we're going to fight King Garroth. So if you look at the dungeon journal model, you can see that he's only an upper body and he's in some sort of fell puddle, which you'd imagine would fit perfectly into this hole in the center here. More clues to this also come from the fact that he has 3 adds that join him in the battle, which you would assume would spawn on each of the platforms around him. So the boss would be something similar to the Mercius fight from the Siege of Orgrimmar. Beyond the boss platform are more constructs and then nothing. This empty area here will probably be spawned with animated game objects displaying some sort of assembly line, because as of right now, it's just a little too stationary. So this area of the map is known as the Unyielding Garrison on the raid map. As you can see right away, the theme in this area is extremely similar to Wintergrasp with a mix of Old War. Very Titan-like structures and designs as you'd imagine. So my theory on this area is that this is where we're going to fight Eonar the Livebinder, or at least this area will be involved in her fight in some way, as some parts of the area say Unyielding Garrison, but other areas are simply named Argos Raid ENR. I also believe this area is not on Argos either. This theory comes from the Skybox. As you can see, the planets that you see in the sky are not Argos or Azeroth. You have a blue sky with a large void corrupted planet, and to the left of that is another purple looking planet with a ring around it, similar to Saturn. Now, I'm not a World of Warcraft astronomer, but I've never seen this planet with the rings before. But hopefully one of you guys in the comments could possibly have a theory on where we are in the universe and what these other planets are. So my best guess on this map is that you start down here and make your way down the path, either chasing ENR or fighting ads until you reach her. There's also two small caves that are identical to the boss area in VOA from Wrath. One of them is about halfway through the winding path, and the second one is at the end, but it appears it just leads to a wall, so it's more than likely that this area is unfinished, as it also seems there's no obvious area where you'd actually fight ENR. Overall, this area is another amazing feat by the art team, as the design as a whole just looks amazing, and I can't wait to see the full story of this section in the raid. So this next area is split into two different rooms. The first area has a platform in the middle, and then surrounding the room are smaller platforms with portals on them. My obvious assumption is that this is where we'll be fighting Portal Keeper Hasabel, as it's a bit of a giveaway with the name, but I could still be wrong. Each of the smaller platforms has a different colour to each of them. There's a red platform, a green platform, and a purple platform. I would assume that these would represent the sort of ads that will be spawning out at them. Weirdly enough, there's also a second set of platforms below all of these, which appear to be relatively similar. The difference with these is that currently there's no collision on these platforms, so this would make me think that they're just merely here for some sort of decoration, and the final part of the room is actually on the roof. It's a cool looking floating green rock which seems to be spinning around. Probably nothing important, but it's just another set piece of the room, I'm sure. So this room directly links into a very different looking area. This area has a pool of fel in the middle and two smaller rooms to the left and right of it. These smaller rooms could potentially contain some portals or caged creatures, as these are things that can be added as game objects instead of full scenery. Honestly, I believe this could very well be the area where we fight Antorus and the Coven of Shavira. Looking at the surrounding area with cages and bones everywhere, this could be a very nice spot where we can have Antorus chained up with the Coven torturing him. This theory comes from the Dungeon Journal, with the entry stating that he's been tortured by the Coven, stripping away his flesh and his sanity. So it really wouldn't surprise me if there aren't any trash mobs between Antorus and the Coven fights. So our penultimate area is this one. As you'd imagine, the Vindicar makes another appearance at the start, and then it leads to this platform here. The theming for this area really just looks like a dark and corrupted version of the Halls of Valor. Now as you start going down the straight path, it will lead you to this open area with an amazing looking red glass floor and these interesting looking Titan faces in each corner of the room. It's a really cool looking room indeed, and I would imagine that this will be filled with trash mobs leading up to the boss of this area. As you continue out of the room, it leads you out to a similar looking platform, but at the end of it, you have a circular area which I'm fairly sure is the area where you'll be fighting Agramar. If you look at the boss model and the area around me, it really does look like a perfect fit for the second to last boss encounter of the raid. I'm curious to see what part these three spikes will play in the fight. I guess we'll have to wait and see. It would also appear that this area is actually still on Argus, as you can see Azeroth in the sky, but it's surrounded by some ominous cloud of gas, which really raises more questions than answers. And finally, this is the area you've all been waiting for. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the seat of the Pantheon. And I believe this is where we'll be fighting Argus the Unmaker in the final encounter of the Legion expansion. Now as you can see, there are 7 thrones for them to sit on, and using all my amazing lore knowledge from WoW Wiki, I can tell you that there used to be 7 Titans of the Pantheon before Sargeras betrayed them and left. So this model is something I've been teasing and showing off on my Twitter, and quite honestly, I think it's one of the most awesome pieces of art that the Blizzard art department have made in years, and the use of shading and colours really brings this area to life, and the waterfalls falling into nothingness makes it feel even more epic. Now before I finish this video, I'm going to talk about the skybox in this area, and possibly what it all means. So opposite the seat, if you look up, you can see Argus in plain sight, and next to that is Azeroth, covered in more ominous looking gas. My theory is that it could be something to do with Sargeras slowly trying to destroy Azeroth throughout the raid, and by the end, you manage to save it, as you'd imagine. But that's just a theory. I'm probably more than likely wrong, and I'm sure some of you guys in the comments will figure it all out for me and make me look pretty stupid. So guys, that's pretty much everything that is currently on the Antorus map on the PTR right now. Raid testing is starting very soon, so all of these questions will be answered sooner rather than later. I don't want to get spoiled too much, but my curiosity will get the better of me, probably much like a lot of you guys who click this video. So let me know down in the comments your thoughts in this raids, and your thoughts on where these bosses will be positioned across the different zones. But before I go, I'd like to give a massive shout out to my amazing patrons who pledge their real life money to me, especially Twan, who is our patron of the video. So guys, give this video a like if you liked it, and subscribe if you haven't. And with that, I'll see you next time.